Hi all, my name is Fionn. Welcome along to the first presentation in the new series from BLD on nutrition. So this is going to be a little ongoing series going through different topics depending on what you guys are most interested in, and I'll try my best to help out and give you a kind of template guidance on our different topics. So today's session is going to be on nutrition support in the initial stages for S&C coaches, physical therapists, sports scientists, anyone kind of working within that space that doesn't have the background of dietitian, nutritionist, medical professional like that. So myself, I've had undergrad in sports science and a master's in sports nutrition. So I'm currently working as a sports performance scientist, kind of marrying the two of those together with both elite athletes and within the general population. So, what you will get from this session, or what we will go through, like I said, it's the initial assessment of what to look out for if a client is coming to us around nutrition, different things we can start to look at to build the full picture, to then put plans in place depending on where a client's at, depending on what their goals are. Three things you'll hear me talk about a lot: protein, fiber, colour. I have them highlighted there. For me, these are the foundations I use with every client, no matter what their level is. This is their base, and this is their starting block. So I'll come to where a client might be on our kind of nutrition spectrum, that will determine kind of what level we're at. But those are the three things that we're going to really hammer in on, and for you guys, I'll give you a template as to how to work with clients as well. So, and just to be clear on, for strength and conditioners, athletic therapists, your role isn't to prescribe diets. It's to be there as a support, to build an understanding, and to help clients make better choices. So the more educated you can be, the better it'll be. But don't be afraid also to say no if somebody comes to you. I know nowadays people are expecting anyone within a gym setting to know everything about all sorts of topics. So if you're uncomfortable, don't be afraid to refer on to a dietitian, nutritionist. I'll come to that in terms of what to look out for, to know if something's beyond what you know, just for your safety, for your client's safety. So coming back to that initial nutrition assessment, what are the things we should look for to ensure we get a full picture of a client's current habits and where they want to go? So the most obvious thing on that assessment area is going to be our food intake and patterns. So generally what I look for in that, I get a client to fill out a 3 to 5 day food diary. It basically just gives me a kind of understanding of what they're having, timings of their meals, and photos, so I can kind of get an example of portion sizes, and start to build a little bit of a pattern with what they're having. It's also very handy in advance to give them that to fill out, so when you do sit down with them, you already have a little bit of an understanding. You might have a few questions from what you see, and you can really then go into more detail with your client around their diet. So it's always a really good starting point. Second on that list, what I look through is their nutrition knowledge or perception. So going through their understanding of macronutrients, what they are, what they do for the body. So if I was to say to them, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your understanding or perception of carbohydrates in your diet? Or what are some examples of carbohydrates? Just to kind of see where they might need a little bit more help. They might be, yeah, I know what protein is, I know what it does, I know what the sources are. And then if you're talking about fiber, okay, I don't know what fiber is, what it does, and that gives you as a coach more of an understanding of where we need to kind of bring a little bit more education around, or a little bit more help around. The third factor I look at is lifestyle and recovery, so things outside of nutrition that are going to affect ourselves. So sleep, your quality, duration, stress, your work, training load. So factors outside of food itself that will affect our bodies. Another big factor is their goals. So what do they want to achieve from working with you or in general. Is it performance related? Is it weight loss? What in the past hasn't worked for them? Where were their stumbling blocks? So you can start to build a picture around kind of their habits and what personality they are, so you can figure out what would be the best strategy in terms of working with them going forward. Probably the most important one, health and red flags. So this will give you an indication of if you need to refer them on to a medical specialist. So if somebody has any intolerance, digestive issues, medical conditions, that at least you're aware of that, and you can say, okay, this isn't my speciality. I'm going to refer you on to a medical professional if needs be. And then the final one is practical constraints. So just things around what is limiting factors for them achieving their goals. So whether that be time, cooking, lack of knowledge. So that kind of builds that full picture of that initial assessment. So how do we deal with clients, or what's the most beneficial way to work with them around nutrition? It is quite a touchy subject, and it's very different for everyone. A lot of it comes back to nutrition counseling, which is basically goal setting, action planning, and ongoing support. So those are things as coaches we can do, regardless of our input around nutrition. We can help them set goals. We can help them build a little plan, a bit of structure around those pillars that I'll talk about, and being there for ongoing support, because I'm sure you guys working within that space sometimes feel like counselors more than strength and conditioning coaches or athletic therapists. So that has been found to be helpful, is being that support for people. So the most effective ways that research has shown for people to kind of achieve their goals or change their habits, cognitive behavioral therapy and motivational interviewing are the two big ones, are the two most researched ones. So talking about unhelpful thoughts that they have and replacing them with practical strategies. So it's building small habits that they can repeat time and time again, that then becomes natural for them. Motivational interviewing, so reflective listening, so getting the clients to tell you their own reason for changing it. So they're asking themselves those questions. So yeah, coming back to that kind of nutrition counseling around listening to your clients, setting goals, and starting to build a plan. So we're going to always going to deal with a different variety of clients, from someone who has little idea or structure around their food to top end athlete who's looking for that 1%. So how do we scale that in terms of the service we provide, or the detail we go into, depending on where our client is at? So I've kind of broken it down into 6 stages of where a client might fall on it, and how that looks in terms of what we do for it. So the kind of first couple of stages are people who have very little structure, awareness, consistency, irregular meal times, low protein, and just don't have any limited kind of understanding around food. So I'll go into a little bit more detail on this slide here around what they are, and kind of as a coach, what we would look at within those areas. So stage 1, like I said, it's that kind of no structure or understanding. So for you as a coach, your main focus is building a foundation, is building that base. So we don't want to overload them too early. It's building it bit by bit. So could be focused on, okay, breakfast. We're going to start to build a breakfast. We're going to try out a few different ideas. The biggest thing is we're introducing that protein, fiber, color into that diet. So breakfast we build around those 3 things. Lunch we build around it. Dinner we build around it. And then snacks if we can, but making sure at those 3 main meals that we're hitting those things. Building on from that into that stage 2 is, like I said, you're anchoring each and every amount around your protein source, adding your fiber and color. starting to get a little bit of consistency with your meal timing, so having similar breakfast, similar lunch, similar dinner timings, so your body is adjusting to that pattern. Stage 3 is where they have, say, a little bit of understanding. You can see within their food diary that, okay, they're having decent protein, bit of fiber, bit of colour, kind of scattered, and it's more kind of giving them education, giving them guidance on how to make good food choices around those things and how they can further build on it. The kind of stage 3-4 is where you maybe might see kind of a split off from, it might be somebody's goals around performance, nutrition, so around exercise, versus someone in the general population who it's just continuing to build that structure. So it's hard to go into when it's so individualized. It's hard to give a full breakdown of what we're looking for in a client, but this kind of should just give you a bit of a guidance as to what areas we really need to focus in on for them. So coming into that stage 4, it's starting to nail those habits. So you have that base, now we're looking at how can we start to get the most out of those meals. Like I said, whether that's around your performance, your recovery, how to scale your intake on, say, heavy training days versus light training days, and then further like education counselling on food labelling, and kind of being more conscious of how to read food labelling on buying things in supermarkets, for example. The kind of final 2 stages are for those kind of clients who have a really good structure, really good base, and we're just trying to maximize as much as we can. We're trying to really refine their diet for those last little bits that they're looking for. So these stages are generally for people who've had a really good structure over years. It does take time. That's probably the hardest thing with people, is they are obviously hoping for results quickly, but it's the approach I take is very much educational counselling. It's very much structure building, has to be sustainable, enjoyable, and long lasting, because we eat 4, 5, 6 times a day. So the quick fix things and all this is not really a healthy approach to kind of building sustainable habits for people. So I'd only start to go into calories around this stage with people if I know they have a very good structure behind them and mentally their relationship with food is quite good. I'd never on a stage 1, 2, if someone came into me, we'd need to build that structure, build that base, build that understanding, because it's quite hard to, if someone has no structure, if their day-to-day food is changing so much, it's impossible for them to stick to a plan that's going from 0 to 100. It is a gradual process. It does take time, and it is quite tiptoeing around certain things. So that's why if you are unsure at any stage, pass them on to a medical professional. We can still help with things, like I said, around sleep, around recovery, around starting to just build timings with their food intake. There's still loads that we can help within that safe range. So the stages and the pillars, how do we combine those 3 pillars of protein, fiber and colour to those stages? So like I said, those kind of breaking up stage 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, the kind of the pillars are introduced in their most basic form on those first couple of stages. So it's introducing a source of each of those: protein, fiber, colour at your breakfast, lunch and dinner. Stage 3 and 4 is then looking at more so the amounts of these, adjusting portions, timings, food choices, and then stage 5 to 6 is maximising these around, for example, an athlete coming closer to game day, we'd reduce fibre. If it's, recovery, making sure they're getting protein in, make sure they're getting colour in, for their recovery. So the pillars, just a little bit of information for you guys in terms of understanding why we might use these as our kind of base within our diet. So protein is probably one of the most talked about things, or certainly where I am when people come in, protein is always kind of a big thing. So I suppose the biggest thing with protein is for recovery and strength. So supporting strength gains, improving recovery, and it's massively important in weight loss. It's definitely, like, protein is the biggest thing in terms of building a structure for those looking to lose weight. So just keeps us in that kind of pattern of, it's quite satiety heavy, so it keeps you feeling fuller for longer, reduces those cravings. It makes it a lot easier to build a structure when you're getting consistent protein throughout that day, throughout your day. Fiber is similar in terms of that kind of stabilizing energy, appetite control, really good for gut health, digestion, immunity, nutrient absorption, and it's found in vegetables, fruits, so it's packed with vitamins, antioxidants. You can kind of combine your color and fiber into one in a lot of cases. And then your color is your third one. So again, all three of these can be related to athletes or any average Joe in terms of their benefits. It's not just performance, it's day-to-day health, it's day-to-day function, it's, immune function around your fruit and veg, keeping you healthy, whether that's for performance, whether that's day-to-day, go to do your job, go to exercise, to come home to your family. And color as well, it adds volume to your meal. So it's quite nutrient dense relative to calories. So again, for those people looking to lose weight, loading up your plates with fruit and veg is massive to feel like you're getting a good volume of food, but not calorie heavy on it. So they're kind of the three base things that I myself as a nutritionist look for with a client, and then it just depends on at what level do I scale that. If it's somebody who has no structure in their diet, can we start to add one of each of these for your main meals? If it's someone who has these nailed on, we're looking then at portions, we're looking at amounts, we're looking at timings, we're looking at different ideas for your options around these. So a little bit on those three in a bit more detail. So in terms of how much, so protein, although the guidelines are about half of what I'm about to say here, there's a lot of research in terms of how much protein is optimal for strength building and recovery. So for those working in kilograms per body weight, we're looking at about 2 grams, which equates to just over a gram protein per pound body weight. So how that looks for, you have, for an example, a client who's 70 kilos or 150 pounds, you're looking for about 150 grams of protein minimum for their daily target. So and it's not purely a case of end of the day, look, have I got 150 grams of protein? Yeah, tick the box. A lot of other factors come into it. Distribution throughout the day, sources, timing, patterns, all play a part in optimizing that protein intake. So coming back to that protein distribution, so how you intake your protein across that day. For example, 2 clients here, similar intake, 132 grams for the client on the left, 150 for the client on the right. But we can see the distribution of that is very different throughout that day. So what I generally find, this person on the left here in the orange is what the majority of clients I would have coming in. Breakfast, snacks, they struggle with protein. Lunch and dinner, generally they get enough. What we're looking for is that sweet spot of 20 to 40 grams per meal. Lots of research out there in terms of that range being the optimum for maximizing muscle protein synthesis, so for making the most of strength gains, recovery, reducing any injury risk, increased muscle mass. So by optimizing that, by giving our muscles fuel consistently throughout that day, we're able to optimize that process. There's no evidence out there to say that 90 grams of protein is going to give you more than 40 grams. So overloading, for example, on that left side, that dinner of 65 grams is not going to give you a whole pile more than your 40 gram dinner. So if we can get consistent hits of protein throughout that day, we're going to optimize that even further than from just our 150 grams total daily protein. Other things we can add in around it, so like an evening snack, like that will be a lot of work I'll be doing with athletes in terms of giving them a little protein hit to kind of keep them taking over overnight. But again, you're looking at kind of, that's a stage 5-6 athlete versus a stage 1. You're just looking at, can we start to build a structure? Then can we start to distribute that protein evenly throughout it? So these are just some examples. I find these quite handy for clients visually to understand kind of protein dense foods, what that is, and depending on somebody's goals, what they should be looking out for in their foods. So this is protein per calorie in meat and fish, so per 3.5 ounces or 100 grams. So you're talking a big chicken fillet breast, for example. So in that green triangle, we can see protein dense foods. So these are foods that are high in protein but relatively low in calories. So for those clients looking to lose weight, for example, they're the type of proteins we'd be looking to include in our diet. If we have an athlete who is looking to gain size, we can afford to go into this blue box or blue triangle of adding in kind of some foods that might be higher in fats, but we're still getting our protein hit. So depending on where our client's goals, we can alter what kind of protein sources will be most appropriate. This is a similar one, just around dairy. So we can see things like your 0% fat Greek yogurt, egg whites, cottage cheese, quite high in protein relative to calories, your low-fat cheddar, Babybel Light. And then on the complete opposite end, we have like your double cream, your whipped cream, your butter, sour cream that offer us nothing but calories pretty much. So that could be a case of if you have somebody who's looking to gain weight and they come to you being like, oh, whipped cream is 400 calories, I need that. We can be like, okay, can we switch that out for cheddar, blue cheese, brie, parmesan? It's still that same 400 calories, but we're getting 20 grams of protein with that. So these are handy ways of just visualizing or for showing your clients different protein contents of foods. And finally, just some other foods that kind of are commonly eaten. Down in the bottom left corner, we have kind of our berries and fruit, some leafy veg. So like I was saying, not necessarily as a protein, but per 100 grams here, they offer very little calories. So to bulk up your meals, is quite good for kind of fat loss in terms of filling our plate up without overloading on calories, and we're getting plenty of good nutrients in within that as well. And on the top end then, all your kind of nuts, seeds. So it's probably a bit of not a downfall, but what people are kind of unaware of, the likes of your oils and your nuts and seeds, how calorie dense they are. So for example, you would have two people who having a yogurt bowl in the morning. One is loading it up with berries, the other is loading it up with nuts, seeds, peanut butter, and thinking they're kind of getting similar because they're having yogurt, because that's their main thing, but it's adding up quite quickly through those nuts and seeds. So there are things you can start to work with clients around, maybe swapping out alternatives, depending on what their goals are. A little bit about fiber. So mainly that kind of target of, we're looking for 30 grams really per day anyways. Fiber can be found in a lot of different sources: whole grains, fruit, vegetables, and then some nuts and seeds as well. So like I said, we can adjust how we get our fiber in depending on what that client's goal is as well. So if we're looking to lose weight, we can go more down the line of like your raspberries, blueberries. If someone is looking to gain weight, we can start to add in some more nuts, seeds, type thing into their diet. Just add in kind of, again, 1 to 2 fiber sources at every meal. So whether that be your berries with your breakfast, beans and lentils with your lunch, just changing out for brown pasta, brown rice for your dinner, and there's your 30 grams pretty easily across those. Colours then, again, looking for 2 to 3 per meal, so always should have colour on our plate. Like there's so many different functions to fruit, vegetables in our diet, whether that be for reducing inflammation from exercise or recovery between sessions, or if it's just for general health around iron, magnesium, digestion, vitamin A, vision, all those kinds of different things, skin, hair, nail. So this is just kind of a simple base structure of breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, some ideas for anchoring our base around our protein, fiber, colour. So all the things we've kind of gone through in terms of eggs, yogurt as a protein source, chia seeds, berries, brown rice as your fiber source, and then all your fruit and veg as your colour source. So bringing it back to a coach, based off what we've gone through there. First step is that initial assessment. So going through a full kind of profile of where a client is at. So it's not simply here's a 3-day food diary and based off that we're going to do X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of different things that go on around health and around food, so it's making sure we're covering everything in that initial assessment. So with each client, we're then starting with those pillars at every meal. So again, like I said, that can depend on what stages our client is at. But these are the 3 things we're looking out for with each person we're looking at. Building a simple daily pattern. So your main meals, your snacks, and then goals depending on that. If it's fueling for exercise, then that becomes your default day. So you have a structure in place that you can go to. For most people, like I say, if you 80% of the time have your structure in place, you can go out at the weekend, you can have food with your friends, do what you want, and the next day you can fall straight back into your routine. It is tricky with clients around nutrition in wanting that quick fix, or if they have one bad day, they kind of think, oh, I've had a bad day, I may as well have another. So if we can build as much structure, as much routine as we can, that they can go out, have food with their friends, no problem, have a few drinks, whatever they want, and they know tomorrow, okay, I know I'm breakfast, straight back into my routine, what works for me, and they're straight back on it. And then just scaling that structure based on a client stage. So like I said, depending on where they are, we can then branch out from those bases to get to a client's needs. So just a little bit on what's kind of your scope as a sports practitioner, and when to refer on to, for example, a dietitian or nutritionist. So within that assessment, if somebody flags back any kind of medical conditions around nutrition, so diabetes, IBS, Crohn's disease, thyroid issues, they have chronic fatigue or digestive issues, around underfueling, so especially in women, any issues with menstrual cycle, recurrent injuries, anxiety, disordered eating concerns, if they've had history with other diets, or obsessive calorie tracking or fixated on numbers. That's why I really try to get away from the number side of things. I know sometimes you do need to go down that route, but knowing what level a client is at and what their headspace is like in terms of around food is big, before you start talking calories and different things like that. Like, for me, I don't ever get obsessive over it, never have, because food has to be enjoyed. You have to go out and you can't be worrying about calories and foods all the time. It's if you have that structure in place, if you have started to build a base and a system that works for you, like I said, 80% of the time, then you're in a really good place. So if something feels off or outside your scope, refer. Protects you, protects the athlete. So how you might relay that to somebody. So if you're kind of unsure of something, or something is flagged on it that is outside your comfort, you can say to them, we can keep working on structure, we can keep working on your sleep, we can keep working on your meal timings, but I'd like you to speak with a dietitian to make sure you're getting the support you need. And finally, just a little bit on some of the literature used in the bits of the presentation today, and just some general bits around protein, fiber, color, and kind of consultations around nutrition. So this is the first lecture in the series. Hope you enjoyed. Any questions, reach out to me. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.